Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Consciousness with your luscious hostess, May Vu, broadcasting live every Monday at 12 noon Pacific Time.
I am tackling sex in the Middle East. To me, the Middle East is such a hot region in more ways than one, and it's so mysterious to me. It's one of those most central regions in the world, yet there are so many veils covering it. And I've been so curious about this region, so today I want to pull back the veils to get to know how the Middle East handles their sexuality, their lives, and their consciousness. And I want to learn it from the locals. I don't want to learn it from articles, from the net, from TV, because I don't know when is it real or when is it propaganda of how people want to shape our views of the Middle East. So to me, this conversation is not a political conversation, but it's simply satisfying my curiosity. Just like I'm equally curious about sex, lives, and consciousness in Asia, or in Venezuela, or Finland, or even the North Pole, for that reason. So today, I have with me three beautiful guests, my friend Ali and Venus, who live in the Middle East, and Sherry Beck, who lives in the States as I do. Ali and Venus are my local experts, and I invited Sherry because she has a really interesting background. She studied a lot about culture and societal development, and I think that her perspective may add some depth to the conversation. So I invited Sherry to join us. So welcome, Ali and Venus and Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's great to be here, May.
It's my pleasure. I can't wait. So before we dive in, I just wanted to let the audience know, I tried several times to create this show, and it met with a lot of hesitation, a lot of excitement, and then a lot of hesitation, and a lot of fears around it. Because I was told that it's not safe for people who live in the Middle East to talk about sex openly. Apparently, there are people out there that get very upset about this. So I just wanted to say that this is a pretty new conversation for all of us. It's probably scary for my guest who lives in the Middle East, so I appreciate your courage to be here and sharing. And I wanted to also say that my reasoning for doing this show is not to make anything bad and wrong or to poke fun off or to disrespect what is right now. I think it's very important that we just approach it with curiosity and fascination rather than judgment of how any society should be. So I just want to put that stake in the ground first.
Great.
And then invite you all to share. So Ali or Venus, who would like to start first? I don't even have a good starting question. So let me start with some. So tell me what got you to agree to doing this show? Let's just start there. Venus. Ali.
Venus.
You're having me do a head start. Great. First of all, hello to everyone who's listening. Thanks for this, and thanks for the opportunity. I personally, as a person, don't have an issue talking about sex, and I want to just correct something to make it well known. It's not that we don't talk about sex amongst each other in the Middle East. In fact, not only we do it openly, we also act upon it openly. But when it goes into media where people from outside get to look at it or judge it, or if it, let's say anybody talks about it, well, that could be a little bit problematic. So that's where the fear came from for me personally. I didn't want to really get into any sort of trouble from a legal aspect of it. Otherwise, I'm totally excited about this. I think it's a great topic to talk about. I think to a lot of people it is a mystery. To some people it's a taboo, as it is anywhere else in the world probably as well. And it's a subject that's good to open up, no matter where it is. I'm sort of in tune with what you think, May, that talking about sex anywhere in the world or lies in consciousness, that goes with it. So that's why I'm here. And thank you.
How about you, Ali?
Hi, everyone. I was thinking about the subject, sex, lies, and consciousness. I love the combination that you have chosen for your initiative, I should say. It actually covers the whole thing. Sex is sex in the Middle East or in Italy or in the U.S.
Right.
We don't go and say, "Hey, honey, let's have a Chinese sex tonight," or Middle Eastern.
Really?
Middle Eastern sex this weekend. Well, maybe some American quickie for tonight, before dinner. But that's it. I think sex is sex everywhere, and it's a million years developed kind of thing amongst humans or other animals. But what makes it different and very different here is the level of lies and consciousness, I guess. And, what I have for tonight to say is about lies and consciousness.
Right. Oh, that's such a great distinction that you put there, Ali.
Yeah, this is my introduction.
Nice.
Very well put. I like it.
Let's go. Take us forward, Ali. So,
Yeah.
what lies should we start to name? Well, oh God, it's so big. I don't know where to begin. So I want to go to the lies, and I also wanted Venus to just even make a statement of the current condition of how people deal with sex. You know how you've been talking to me about that, Venus?
Yeah, be a little bit more specific, because we've talked a lot around it, and about a lot of, there are the lies, there's the consciousness, there's the openness we also talked about, and there's the leakage out. So tell me, be a little bit more specific so I can tap into it, because I have a lot of information going on in my head right now.
I know. I just remember you talking about how, May, it's so, sex is just rampant in this region. We're not afraid to do anything. We're not uptight like the Americans are, but we just don't talk about it. We get in trouble when we talk about it, and like how, but this is, I don't actually call this sex, but I know a lot of people call this sex, like hookers and sex workers are just, open and expected and all this stuff, and yet people have veils over themselves, and so it's a whole dichotomy between how I guess we are entering the lies, or the covering up or something.
I want to say something to from my intro would be this. I had a friend visiting me from Los Angeles about 6 months ago, and she stayed for 3 days. The day she was leaving, she said, "Macy, sorry." She's like, I've never seen anything as far as having so much sexual energy in the air, nothing like this. And I'm a world traveler. I've never seen anything like it as I'm seeing it here. So that goes to say that there's a lot of sexual energy in the air. It's definitely being put to work. And yes, prostitution here is pretty much free. You see them everywhere, from 5-star, 6-star hotels and restaurants, all the way to having their own little joints. So long as, from a legality standpoint, so long as force is not, they're not being forced into anything, or they're not being abused, and law is not being involved in any way, they're free pretty much anywhere, everywhere. Now, that is not seen in America. Monogamy, for example, has a different meaning over here. Monogamy is you go get married because you got to get married. It's a cultural thing, or it could have some religious factors involved in it. And what you do is basically you have polyamory outside of that. She becomes the mother of your kids. You got to take care of that, and then you go off having basically your dessert somewhere else.
So you're talking from the male perspective, like the men.
Yeah, the men. Now, when it comes to women also, women have their own little games going on, but obviously more discreet. Okay? They have their thing going on as well. And funny enough, we have a lot of groupies. We have a lot of homosexuality going around. We have a lot of married people who are bisexual, but they don't let within their marriage for people, for their partners to know, but they go around and do whatever they want. I have gay friends over here who are involved with married men, for example. That you see that. So long as you don't get in any way in trouble, you're fine to practice whatever you want to do. And it's open.
What I can say is that openness and lies have two sides here, or everywhere in the world, I guess. One side is not telling the truth, and one side is hiding it, I think, because of very complicated psychological or economical reasons. One of them might be making it more exciting or more exotic. As 200 years ago, some Westerners saw women in the Middle East or in the East in general very exotic, like Gustave Flaubert was talking or writing about harems or olive skin women here. I think part of the taboo, part of not seeing what we see sexually in the West comes from wanting it to be like this, wanting to be somehow seductive, somehow not out there. You know what I mean? Yeah. And
May, your voice is very unclear. Can you speak a bit louder?
Hang in there with me.
Oh, that's good. That was good. Just a fraction of a second went good.
So anyway, and
Perfect.
That was my first encounter to that was, oh my gosh, the woman was all dressed in the, I don't know what those are called, the black outfit, with just the
abaya. They call them abaya.
Right. And they're just, they look really contained and conservative and covered up, but underneath it, when they sat down, the shoes that they were wearing, I was like, oh my God, these are the hottest thing ever. And it's that flash of that secrecy, that flash of the revealing of what's underneath, was so erotic. And I was just like, whoa, that's how they're playing this game, So I just thought that was really fascinating to see that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Western men who are absolutely sexually aroused by that, mind you.
Yeah.
A lot of my Western friends tell me that they love women in abaya because they know under it goes a very sexy outfit, and that they find a lot of these women hot because they do have actually, that's where the lies comes in. They do have affairs with a lot of these women, and neither one of them talks about it to their partners or non-partners or families or friends. It's very much hidden.
Right. Were you going to say something, Ali?
Yeah, and I can talk about specifically about Iranian culture because I'm familiar with my country's culture,
Yeah.
and this shows in our literature, in art. We don't have an open, very expressive kind of sexual art here. Not at all. You cannot see it in novels.
Yeah.
You cannot see it in paintings. You cannot see it in the music. But it's very subtle. It's very hidden. If you read between the lines, if you notice, you can see there is a sign. Even in the poetry, there are many famous Persian poets. You can find some romantic plus sexual poems in their poetry, but there is nothing open, not at all, not even one single line. I think part of it is taboo, and part of it is by design, like fashion, like what we wear here, especially women.
There's some loud noise in your background. I don't know if it's from Venus or Ali, but whatever noise you're making, it goes right into the show.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not here.
Yeah. So
it's not for me either. Okay.
So I'm starting to get this sense of wow, this is just like a big old game that everybody decided to play.
Maybe it's a main part of it is because of the religion, and we have a very long history of it. There are very direct rules related to it, so people have learned during hundreds of years what to do and what not to do regarding sex and anything related to it.
Wow. And so how does that affect Sherry, do you have any question or anything you wanted to add?
Well, it's a huge topic, so it's where to dial in at, and I'm just trying to get a sense myself of what is the point of view, and how are these two guests holding sexuality as representatives of the Middle East, and what's actually something that is more socially the norm, and if these two are more on the edge, if they're pushing the edges of our sexual orientation, just by the fact that they're willing to talk on the radio, about it, maybe pushing the edges. So I don't really have the sense that I'm picking up is that there's behind closed doors, a lot more is accessible than out in front. And while in the U.S. that certainly was the case for a time being, what you find in the U.S. is that we have a lot of stuff that can be out in front that's not behind closed doors, and yet I think behind our closed doors is a lot more conservative and a lot more limited than what most people would expect, because the outside of it seems so expressive, and the inside, on the behind closed doors, is not as expressive. So I'm sort of is it the reverse in the Middle East? Is what I'm asking.
That's so fascinating. Yeah. Thank you for.
I have a question for you, Sherry. When you say, can you distinguish when you say out in the open, what you mean? Like when I go to the bar, I'm not being approached sexually, or I'm not being, out there with my, sexual advances either towards someone or them towards me, obviously in public, versus when I get behind the closed doors. Now we get into the real meat of the matter and sort of do whatever we want. Can you distinguish the differences between the two?
I think we're speaking the same thing, and what a question I'm asking, is it the reverse in cultures from the U.S. to the Middle East that I'm aware of? So what you find in the U.S., at least today, is a lot of visible sexual invitation. The way we dress, the way we talk, even the conversation in public.
Well, or even our ability to hold hands or to kiss in public and no one really fuss about, you know.
Right.
I don't think that's encouraged or allowed in the Middle East or in a lot of the Middle East. Is that right?
We're talking between Ali and I. We're going to have two different views on this.
Yeah.
I do live in Dubai. Obviously, I live in a much more open society, and I'm going to answer you. And Ali most probably has a different scenario to discuss with you. So whichever you want first.
So go ahead. So talk from Dubai.
In Dubai, I think we are even more provocative in our clothing than in the U.S., unless you're going to try Los Angeles or New York, or some Miami Beach probably. However, saying that, holding hands, you've got places to places. Where you've got places where expats, when I say expats, this is the other than the locals, meaning the Dubaians or the Emiratis that we're talking about. If you're in a place like that, holding hands is okay. You can't really get in a long lip-locking sort of affair there in public, okay? And mind you, in private parties, we do. We have even beyond that,
right?
Okay? And when I say private parties, we could be on a beach. We could be on a beach with, having that. The past few years have gotten a little bit more stricter, and that goes to Sherry agreeing with you. There's a whole lot of other things behind it. There is religion, there is the political factor, and there is also the push that comes from a country, Saudi Arabia, next to us, which keeps pushing. Okay, so look, that's another story.
Yeah.
Right.
So things have started changing a little bit. However, when I say we are open, yes, we're open. Behind closed doors, per my experience, we're even more open than the West, I think. We really do go and play and know that puritanical conservatism does not exist. That's the lie. See, that falls into what Ali was saying. That's where the lie comes in. That's where you kind of show off that religious factor, for example, or the cultural factor that brings the lie, like you're the good girl and you don't do these things. But in fact, behind closed doors is a different story.
Right.
Does that kind of answer?
Where in the U.S., particularly with the younger women, what you find is that the boundaries have been really stretched. So you'll find young women now free to express their sexuality visually out in the open, actually even invite more sex. But behind closed doors, I think you'll find that they're probably less sexually mature, as well as are not as in touch like women with their orgasm. There's a lot of women still that are having lots of sex with lots of partners in lots of different positions, lots of different, why they're doing it, and yet are not in touch with their own orgasmic potential, their own experience of it. It becomes something very external, which is not natural for women. That's what I'm kind of trying to get a sense of, what if it's just reversed.
Interesting. Let's make some room. Yeah. Ali, your turn.
Well, it's interesting. I agree with Sherry, and I think this business of sex should be done somewhere. If it's done outside, so there is less time dedicated to it in-house. And if it's not outside, so we do it more inside. I totally agree that it's reversed here, at least in my country. It's so oppressed in the society, in the media, on the streets, everywhere, in the schools. So it should be hidden. But as I said, this business should be done somewhere. You cannot ignore it. You cannot forget it. You cannot hide it forever. it should be done. It should be taken care of, and people take care of it inside.
Well, as I'm listening to this conversation, I had a question that came up, which is, in the U.S., when we're talking about sex, especially sex for people in their 20s, for women in our 20s, is that we tend to have sex to earn marriage, right? We work towards sex for marriage, sex for security, sex for a diamond ring on our fingers. I know I'm generalizing, but I think it's still predominant in the 20s. I wonder what sex is used for in Iran and in Dubai.
Ali, you want to go for it?
Yeah. I think it's exactly the same. I think it's, as far as I know, it's human nature. It's a role that female and male play in this game. I think I see no difference here.
I see. How about
that makes it?
I'd have to agree on that. I think it's a worldwide, trend. It's a wave or whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. In Dubai as a whole, the wave is that a lot of young people live in the city, and we have way too many millionaires per capita. And so with that, it brings a lot of that particular kind of wanting, wanting to basically be sexual and be in every way sexed up in every way and do anything. So I think the difference of behind the closed doors is for you to please the person you get. So you kind of engage and play because you're doing this to get what you want. And what you want could be a car, could be a Gucci bag, could be a jewelry, could be a nice getaway vacation. It could be a month's rent. We have a lot of that going on, in fact. And yet there is that aim and desire for marriage. But because a lot of people are transient here, they come and go, that sort of doesn't happen all the time. In fact, very rarely it happens. One of the major issues that when we all sit around as single people of all ages, I have friends of all ages, that we talk about is about everybody having an issue finding the right person. Because it's just, you go to a bar or you go to a party, you see a lot of charming people, a lot of good-looking people. You've been here, May. A lot of these people are very sexual, and they put it out there. But it's not about commitments. And the women want it. However, also there comes their desires for extras. So it's like they go for that. If we call that a trap, they go for that, and then, they get what they want out of it, and then it doesn't happen. So next. Because they're in their 20s, and they've got a lot of time, and they still can experience the world, I guess.
It feels more confusing. It feels more heightened. It feels faster. It feels like single women still feel the same kind of pain of looking for the right mate, the right husband, to mate with and to establish. And yet somehow it feels more complex or more layered in Dubai.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
It definitely is. It definitely has many flaws.
Well, I didn't say flaws. I just saw the complexity of that.
Well, it's also the lies and the consciousness. What I meant that just goes back to when you consciously do something, and you know it, you want it, you're there, you appreciate it. But when the lie comes in, and you're not conscious there, then you leave room for disappointment. And you leave room for confusion, and you leave room for a lot of, BS murmurs that just goes around amongst everybody, and it ruins it, doesn't it? And a lot of these people do have issues with, in fact, engaging in sex. Psychologically, they do. They engage in this, and then because they expect something. They don't get out of it what they want. Then it creates a lot of other psychological issues around it. So there's a lot of baggage that goes with that.
Yeah.
Well, now we're starting to get into where I think Spiral Dynamics helps explain a little bit about it and helps guide us a little bit, although we're not going to be able to dive too much into it. But Spiral Dynamics actually starts to articulate what these layers are and what the psychological changes are. And I don't know a tremendous amount about how things are happening in the Middle East, but if I were going to, kind of start with some assumptions, is part of the conditions that we're in, mostly planetary now, but certainly depending upon these larger cities that are opening up, and we're starting to receive information and symbols and cultural types of rule sets that are mixed, amongst cultures. It's all getting really confused. And what happens is that, like in the Middle East, it may have been capped, where if we had just, 2 or 3 of these levels, or one psychological way of thinking about sex that was allowed society-wise, things are very clear. They're limited, but they're very clear. People know what you can do, what you can't do, what's accepted. You know when you're pushing outside of, when you're not pushing outside of conforming. And now, because you can actually start to operate on various levels at any given time with a given person, like what am I supposed to do? Is this okay or is it not okay? Can I play here or can I not? What are the repercussions? We don't know. We actually don't know, because there's so many different ways of thinking about it that are at play now. This is part of the challenge, is getting it sorted out. And Spiral Dynamics will tell us that there's actually a natural progression, that we actually want to kind of move from one way of thinking to the next way of thinking to the next way of thinking, because it starts to build on itself, and we can actually naturally grow like a tree would grow from a seed into a sapling, into a smaller tree, up into full size. We actually want that to happen naturally, and today it doesn't. What happens is you've got to take it out of one environment into the next environment, into a different environment, and the transitions from growing naturally don't happen because of all the boundaries that we have out there. It's hard. And sexuality, I think why it's important is because it's one of those primary drivers. It's life force energy that actually does want us to grow, that is going to keep helping us push our boundaries and trying to help us get out on these different ways of thinking about it, so that we can start to sort it out.
Yeah, and you spoke about the sexual energy. I think that's really important for us to just pause a second there, because it's true. The sexual energy is so big, it's so potent, and when it's going through your body and going through your mind, you really can't think straight, and you have urges and you have all these drivers to act, and then you have layers and layers of, like you said, different cultural, different awareness, different evolutions that got passed down to us from our parents, our society, televisions, and all this stuff. So it kind of confuses, everything confuses us. And then you have all these hidden expectations and all these hidden rules, verbal and nonverbal, overt and covert rules and expectation inside us. And then we have all these driver needs, security needs and protection needs and wounded needs that we have. So it's a mess.
We actually call it a
Yeah.
values framework. I mean, all these different values, all these different ways are competing with each other. They're competing with each other individually, and they're competing with each other within groups and cultures.
Yeah, and I can just see how a culture like Korea or Iran or wherever else, it's like, how do you control all of that so that you can make it safe for your people to move forward, So you just clamp it down and put a lot of rules around it some more, and wipe everything and block the internet and all this stuff so that you can have some kind of control over this. Ali, you were going to say something. I want to make some space for you.
I don't know. I think this is so new everywhere, not only in the Middle East. I think we are at the beginning of a very, very long journey. The whole humanity being open, being conscious, being honest when it comes to sex and sexuality, I think is an infant. So I really don't know what to say here.
Yeah.
That's probably the most honest statement we can all make.
Well, I have a couple of questions from my fans that had sent in earlier. So here's one of them. He said, Matt asked, I'm curious what conversations around sex in the Middle East sound like. I think, in general speaking, in the U.S., the conversation around sex revolve around being good at it. We make a lot of jokes about how good we are, how big, our equipment is, and how often we get laid, that kind of stuff as an accomplishment, or having orgasm as a goal, kind of thing. What are the conversations around sex in the Middle East, or in Iran and in Dubai? Let's just be more specific.
Ali, you want to go for that?
Yeah. I'm not surprised. It's exactly the same. If men especially talk about the quantity, how many affairs they are having, they have had, they are talking about the size of the thing that they have, and they show their pride in it. I don't know what girls talk about. I have heard something from my friends. They don't talk much about the quality or the orgasm that they have. As far as I know, maybe I'm talking about 2 or 3 persons. I cannot generalize here. But for the men, I'm sure it's the same everywhere.
How about you, Venus?
I believe ego is ego. We all have it. Maybe it's a challenge of our life through our lifetime to try to get over our ego and look at what's more deeper and what's more real. So on that, I have to agree with Ali. I don't think it really changes. And in terms of orgasm amongst women, I really don't think that has ever been an issue in the Middle East. In the past, 10, 15 years that I've been traveling back and forth, and I have many friends from all countries around. I think that hasn't been really an issue. I've never really had, or I've never heard anybody talk about that. It's the women are very explicit and very descriptive, in fact. We're very open when we talk. We talk about the sizes of dicks and what pleases us and how big and the girth, and we talk about how he did it and how many times I came and, how many orgasms I had or how he did it and this and that. So it's very open in that sense. Yes, very open. I'm telling you, I know it shocks you, and I keep reminding you that we are very open amongst each other with that. Just that it's just that nobody comes out and says it, like on a radio show or on a BBC newscast or on a CNN, network.
That's why I want you. It's locals. I don't want to hear it from a nice news station.
No, we really do. We talk about size and girth, how many times we had an orgasm, how he did it, what he did. We go to each other. One of the things that I've had with a couple of friends a while ago is like, hey, how did we learn this technique of the squirting? And I'm like, are you serious? Yeah. It's just very I wish a lot of you guys back in San Francisco were here to teach some of us.
You should see Sherry and my face. You know, our mouths are like dropped wide open, going.
Don't.
Let's talk about sex.
I know.
I have something.
Go ahead.
I have something to say here. When we talk, one thing that I think it's important is that when we talk, we lie a lot because we don't talk about our failures, our dissatisfactions, our oppressed desires. We seldom talk about these things amongst each other. So this is, I think, this is the real issue. Some lies that we tell all the time, or some truth that we don't tell all the time when we talk about it, even to our close friends.
Wow. You know, that made me think of like...
Well, I don't know about your crowd, but about my crowd, amongst the women, I have to disagree, because we do. We're very open with that.
Well, but I saw an interesting comparison here. Sherry, check me out. See if it's just my experience or if you experience the same thing. But for me, when I hear my girlfriend talk about sex and when they're willing to open up and talk about sex, it's usually a complaint. It's usually, oh, you know, it wasn't that great, or he didn't do this, or he didn't do that. I don't normally hear a conversation of us women talking about girth and size and how often he got me off. I've never heard an American talk.
We do both.
He got me off. And
we do both.
No. I mean, if you actually kind of broach the subject, it might say, yeah, we had sex, and yeah, it was great, or yeah, it wasn't so great, or whatever. But to details and, like, you know, getting down and, like me being able to visualize, have any sense of, like, what happened there, no, don't even. And I'm willing to talk about it and open it. It just is not.
Me too. Yeah, no one would talk about that with me. They would think I have horns on my head or something.
So let me ask you this, girls. Am I lucky to hear these kind of things or not? I'm like feeling left out over here. Because seriously, this is what we talk about. It's like, hey, you know, a friend picked up somebody in a bar. We were together, and I know they went home. The next morning, she calls me. I'm like, so how was it? Was it good? Nah, well, he was a needle dick. Okay, fine. Or like the next one. Okay, how was it? Oh, he was fantastic. So tell me. So it becomes descriptive. So it's like, okay, is I don't know. Maybe it's the crowd that I have.
Keep talking. I want to hear how a conversation would unroll. So then he was fantastic. Then what?
And I'm like, okay, so how was it? How big was he? He's like, perfect. Okay, like what? Perfect. Like, then we get into sizes, and she's like, oh, he was delicious. And I'm like, so what happened? And then we talk about everything, the oral to anal to playing to whatever, you know, whatever is their game.
Hold on. You're talking to women who don't normally have this conversation, so you have to slow it down and spell it out so that we can learn something.
You put me in that position.
Absolutely. As girlfriends. So
I love it.
Say, and then what happened? You know, all I would know is, and then what happened, rather than, why would...
I don't have any questions.
I don't care. Allie jumped in. Help. SOS over here.
So Venus, teach us, how do you engage in this kind of conversation with your girlfriend?
Okay, let's put it this way. Allie and I are really good friends. If I got on the phone with Allie and I'm like, hey, I had this great sex last night, and it's like, oh, Allie, he had like the most delicious dick, and we went at it for like, 4 hours, and I would be just fine with me telling him. He can vouch for that. So it's like, it's just whatever he asks me, I'm out there. And with my girlfriends, it's the same thing. If I ask, hey, tell me what it was. What did you do? What did he do? I have a girlfriend who, hey, you're going to love this. She's into spanking.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, a while back, and she wasn't getting it like she wanted it out of a lot of the guys. And there was one who was really into it. And she was like, man, that was like the best I had. I'm like, what did he do? He's like, he just got going on that and started it, and he did this, and then, you know, we got into positions. Oh, he did this and that, and then sizes of dicks and how many times she had an orgasm and how he went around, and even the conversations they had. You know, she got into that. So,
you know, I don't know if it's just me being ultra conservative, which is actually an ironic statement, by the way, if anybody who knows me. But when I hear you talk, I just thought, oh my God, I would be so afraid to be that honest here with my girlfriend, because if I say, yeah, and he spanked me or he put his hands around my throat and, you know, choked me a little bit, they would be calling the police and think that, you know, book me into some mental. Yeah, or if I say I'm like,
America, babe. That's America.
Anal sex, they would be like, really?
Oh no, God! By the way, that thing works a lot around here, this area. Remember, some people need to keep their virginity, or even we have, yeah, that thing works a lot over here.
Sherry,
anal sex is very popular over here.
Talk, Sherry. Like, what kind of sex conversations you have with women around here?
I want you to know.
I
wanted to know.
Look, I don't. You know, I'm actually more than willing than most to talk about it, and it just doesn't come up with most of my friends.
Exactly.
And I'm curious though, because what I'm hearing mostly in terms of what you talk about is some awareness and ability to like what he did and the mechanics of it, and you know, kind of getting into some of the techniques. And I'm curious if you're as aware, as in touch, and talking about what, you know, your own personal, as a woman's experiences of sexuality, which is, to me, we're actually, our natural orientation is not that. It's not about size. It's not about numbers. It's not about technique. You know, it's the connection. It's you know, what am I thinking? What am I thinking of when this is happening? And what's the total experience? And like, you know, could I, like, when I'm multi-orgasmic, could I feel this orgasm from the, you know, tips of my toes to the top of my head, and not just was he able to take me there or not? Not about him so much. I'm curious, like, how much of the conversation goes in that direction.
Remember when I talked about consciousness?
Yeah.
Remember when I said about consciousness, and I said that unfortunately that's not as popular over here, and that is probably what makes it toxic, or whatever I said, and I tried to explain why. That's unfortunately where it is. That I feel. The consciousness is not there. That sensation of goddess is not there. That it's just not there, and that's why, hence, it creates so many psychological, you know, issues around it. And I have very few, far in between, who are women who are very conscious, and yes, we do talk about that, but not everybody's like that. Not everybody's like that.
Just to say, we don't talk about that over here either. I mean, like, the usually what I hear the conversation is more like, is, are we gonna date again? Is he gonna? Are you guys gonna get married? You know, it tends to lead to that. You know, are you gonna see him again? Is there a future in this? Are you gonna get married? So that's usually what I don't hear what Sherry is saying over here either.
Well, I already established that a lot of these people go in it, maybe having the desire for marriage and security and having someone to love them for who they are in their lives. It's just the dynamics of the city does not allow it, or is not there.
Yeah.
And as a result, this is what happens. It's a very sexual city. That's according to me, and I don't want to vouch for, but it's just what I've experienced, what I have seen and felt.
Yeah. How about you, Ali? What do you want to say?
Well, yeah, I think the consciousness is a very complicated topic, and there are so many different perspectives to talk about when it comes to consciousness. What I want to say is that forget about sex. How many people eat consciously? And eating is the less complicated problem to the humanity. I don't know if you agree with me or not.
Totally.
But even in the first world countries, still in 2012, so many people eat to get food or to survive.
Yeah.
There are few people who are conscious about what they eat, how they eat, why they eat, what they eat. I think it's the same for sex. I think it's a very non-public topic to talk about.
That's so beautiful.
It is.
It's beautiful that it's non-public?
No, it's beautiful how Ali related to eating. It's like well, to be blunt about it, it's feeding either hole, right? The mouth or the vagina, right? So and if we can't be conscious with the mouth, how do we stay conscious with the vagina, which is way down there, right? So
we don't have all these problems of lying about eating. Everybody's open when it comes to eating. We talk about it, we express it. We have lots of restaurants in Tehran, even more than New York. So it's so open, but we don't eat consciously, not at all.
Right.
I don't know how people eat consciously in New York or other cities in the U.S. or other countries in the West.
What's so funny and crazy is that I just recently went to an acupuncture over here, an acupuncturist, and she took my pulse and she goes, "How do you multitask when you eat?" And I'm like, "That's my most productive time. I can watch a movie, eat, and talk to my daughter all at one time." Or I can write a blog post, or I can read a book. It's like, who just only do one thing at a time nowadays? So it just was so fascinating when she just in a second can read my pulse and can see that I'm not conscious when I eat, and it's actually affecting my digestive system. And so I just thought, wow. And then the next few days, I tried to just eat and not do anything.
That's fine.
It was like hell. It was just like, oh my God, this is so slow, and I'm wasting so much time. And it's just so hard to really slow it down and pay that kind of attention to eating.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, that's characteristic of, things speeding up. So time is speeding up, all around the planet we're feeling this, and we've got to keep up with everybody else. So this hunger for sex that we feel, it's the same drive that we do for food as it is for sex. And now that it's becoming a little bit more, wherever it's open, either behind closed doors or in front of closed doors, it's this, bigger, better, more, bigger, better, more, bigger, better, more. Then I'm okay. I can fit in. I'm going to survive. I'll be safe, whatever the motivation is behind it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more complicated than that, obviously.
Totally. So I have another question from another person. It said, my friend in Amman said that most of his colleagues are virgins. Fascinating. 30-something virgins, blah, blah, blah. So what do you guys have to say about that? I mean, like, what's the, there's so many questions in that one statement. Like, how do they teach kids around sex? Or what do people do with their virginity? Do they guard it like it's some jewel, or do they throw it away? What's the relationship to that?
Should I go?
Yep.
Ali, you want to go?
No, you go ahead, Venus.
Amman is the capital of Jordan. It's a little bit different.
Oh, tell me about that. What's so different about that?
That's a little bit different. A lot of the Jordanians come from the Palestinians, and these are very, how can I say it? They're very, very, very smaller community, very cohesive, but very smaller community, and a lot of old-fashioned. And man, as a city, you feel it. You feel that heavy old-fashioned sort of ways of living or even socializing that still lives there. And yes, I do believe that they said that they have friends who are 30-something and they're still virgins. And a lot of these marriages happen by arrangement as well, which family to which family, and a lot of them are, for example, a lot of the Palestinians who are educated abroad, they come back home to get married. And religion plays a very big role, very big role. And of course, being under the political oppression, again, we've got Israel there, and a lot of these people, like in Ramallah, West Bank, Gaza, they live there, and now that's another issue. Sherry, you can identify with that probably. Those also play a lot into the dynamics of this whole thing. So Amman is a different thing. You're talking about Lebanon is a different thing. You come to the Gulf, the Persian Gulf countries, in the south of Persian Gulf, then it's a different thing, like Dubai or the ones around. So, I can believe that. And a lot of it is social, cultural, as well as religious, pressures that they feel.
Wow.
And the other thing that was very interesting to me, I didn't know until about a few years ago, and it was just shocking to me when I came to the Middle East at first, because it just never happened. As I got to go and come back home, I came, I would come stay in San Francisco and then come back here. As I did that longer of staying here, I realized that a lot of these girls also engage in sex, and there was a lot of anal sex going on because they didn't want to lose their virginity. That's why I say anal sex is popular. However, a lot of them did engage. And then when they want to get married, I don't know what the procedure is called, but they actually go to the doctor to sort of mend their hymen or something so that when they... Now, that's still a question to me because I've never met somebody who's done that, and I would love to ask them, well, what do? Do you act like a deadbeat? Like, how could you be dormant and completely phase out an experience? Because you, as somebody experienced, you respond differently to touches, sensuality, to, your sexual responses. I would think, I don't know, I haven't been there, so I don't know what to say, but I would think, if that happened to me and I was many years sexually active, and then all of a sudden, okay, I'm getting married and I'm becoming a virgin. So what happens to that whole, the element of experience and the element of reactions and impulses and, that whole, the wiring and the whole thing just seems to me really odd. And now that's a question to me. But because I haven't come across someone like that, I've never obviously asked. And amongst girlfriends, we've talked about it, and then obviously they're all very much out there engaged and involved with, sex, so everybody laughs about it, but it's a question mark.
Thank you. Ali, do you want to squeeze in here before I have to bring the show to an end?
Yeah, I think this is the same in Iran, especially in small towns, small communities. People are very not comfortable with losing their virginities before getting married. But in a big city like in Tehran, they are not anymore. First, because some people they don't really care anymore. But I don't think there are too many. But the others, I think they are very good lawyers because of the medical procedures or surgeries, whatever. They can become virgins for more than one time, as far as I know. So they can become virgins 2 or 3 times, or as many times as it is needed. I think it is, to me, it's not a big issue because behind it is a lot of there is a lot of lies that they tell to themselves and to their partners.
Fascinating.
How is it not a problem? In what way?
Well, you know what? You guys, you're going to have to come back on another show.
I think
I have
we ran out of time.
an end here. The hour just flew by. Thank you so much, all three of you, for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here.
Sherry, do you want to say anything, since they got the last words? Do you want to say anything before we go?
I just feel like you opened up this Pandora's box and trying to understand it culturally when there isn't one culture and one way. It's like hard to start pulling it apart. But we took a stab at pulling this apart, and I certainly enjoyed, learning about the Middle East because I didn't know. Like, well, who knew, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I say something quickly, just for the audiences who are listening to it?
Go ahead.
I just want to say that Dubai is not typical to anywhere else in the world that I know, and because of the fact that we've got 20% of the local, meaning Emiratis, and 80% expats from over 150 countries. So bear in mind what comes in it as a culture, as a religion, as a political awareness, and as consciousness, and as life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great, because I feel like doing a big general apologies for even calling this Sex in the Middle East conversation, because it's such a big region, and it definitely deserves to be named country by country, town by town, and to really explore it and not seem to convey the message that, oh yeah, we covered the Middle East already. Like, I get that this is just one scoop on the surface to approach the subject. And so I appreciate Ali, you and Venus to join the call today and share the local perspectives on what you've observed over the years as you grew up and lived there. So
thank you for having us.
If the audience wants to get a hold of Sherry Beck or Venus or Ali, go ahead and contact through me, because I just want to just keep the confidentiality on this call. I don't know why, but just to. I don't think there's any negative ramification just because we talked about sex in the Middle East today. But because I had some good warning about that, I'm just going to go that way. And Sherry will be back on a different show talking more with me around sex and spiral dynamics and how social and culture evolve over time and where we are and all that good stuff. So I look forward to that conversation in the future, Sherry.
I do as well.
Yep. Okay, so thank you for listening to Sex, Lies, and Consciousness. We do a show every Monday at 12 noon Pacific. And I work with individuals and couples who are in crisis with their sex lives and connections. You can find or connect with me on my Facebook fan page, Sex, Lies, and Consciousness. And next week, we have a treat next week. We have my friend Gregory the Healer, I call him. He has this intuitive ability to read us wherever we are and identify the emotional and spiritual blocks that we may have, especially around our ways or addictions with relationship and love and sex. So if you want, that is a show to call in for, to listen to live, so that you can perhaps call in and get a slot so that Gregory can read you and identify what's happening, and it will really support you. So again, I'll talk to you all at 12 o'clock next week. Thank you for listening to my show. It's the voice of healthy sex. My ultimate goal is to help us get a hold of our sex, own it, play with it, have power over it, and let it fully serve us and bring us joy and freedom. Talk to you next time. Namaste. Bye, everyone.
Namaste. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.